This is the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 15, and verse 5. Behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. For wickedness hath exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. First and foremost, especially in these times today, when we give all praises, honor, and infinite glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakakadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, elder bishops, and the heads and elders of all the camps of great Muslim GMS will do well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the hopeful like scattered abroad, the ship of the Tazapanya, of the great millstone, Washington, D.C. camp, out of one right to Zal, Lord willing. This quick hit is edifying unto the elect. So I have in front of us the angry prepper, and this video that came out an hour ago is this: something sinister is coming soon. Okay, and I have in my title "Lack of Bread Coming Swiftly," which I am paraphrasing from 2nd Esdras 16. Okay, so without further ado, we're gonna play this and filter it through scriptures.
All right, guys. So we are seeing, or at least I'm seeing, more videos of people complaining about food prices. In fact, there are more people doing these videos and crying. And trying to not cry, which is a telltale sign that this is really affecting it. Now, I guess, people crying out of the gates, I just turn the video off. But when you watch people start talking about the fact that they can no longer afford food, or that it's getting tougher for them to afford food, and the fact that they have kids, they have wives and husbands at home, they got other things to pay for, they are looking like now, in June, that they're at wit's end. They're looking like they're ready to do something horrendous in some of these videos. In other videos, these people are also crying, and they're trying to figure a way out of this situation, whether that's starting a YouTube channel, a side business, whatever it is. These people look, that group's to me are people looking to figure a way out. So there's like two groups. And then there's a third group that's just stuck. Meaning they're not trying to figure their way out. They're not trying to go the hard path or create a harder path, if you know what I mean. They're just sitting there stunned at what they are watching when it comes to food prices. Now,
so notice the first one that he brought up, that there's people that is looking like they're willing to do almost anything, right? So in the scriptures it says that the love of many shall wax cold. Okay, let me see if I can find out. Is it Timothy? Or let me see. Salakia, bear with me. But while I look for that scripture, I had the 2nd Esdras 16 lined up. Where is it? This is 2nd Esdras 16 in verse 17, and it says, woe is me, who will deliver me in those days? So these days that we're coming into, even a prophet of the Lord that knew that the Lord was dealing with him, and it also explains reincarnation. But that the times that was coming in, that it was going to be major destruction unto himself. Okay? Verse 18, it says, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the power shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? You see, and this is why we're preparing ourselves now for when the evils come, because evil is what? Bad time. Eve, time, ill, bad.
Yep.
On Proverbs it says, the prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself. See? So if we know through the same spirit that Ezra had on him, that the spirit of the Lord was able to give him a vision of future prophecy, and we're able to see them same things, and we know evils is coming, wouldn't it be smart, right, spiritually speaking, to quote unquote hide yourself? Because you can't literally hide yourself from what's to come, but you're able to put yourself under that spiritual protection if you are of that number, right, of the elect. And he's going to cover you, okay, through you being in this truth, this wisdom, this knowledge, this understanding, okay? And again, Babu Shah, somebody want to post for me. I don't have my coordinates in front of me, but for the love of many shall wax cold, Babu Shah, if you brother want to post it on the comment board. But continuing on.
seemingly everybody in the food industry is on the same page, which I've never seen before, but they're on the same page. And I'm talking about from farmers all the way up to chefs, cooks, and people who buy food at supermarkets. They're all on the same page that this food price issue is going to get out of hand. It's going to get so out of hand. I think we're going to start seeing food shortages because certain foods are not going to be made because no one's buying them because it's too hot. And because we have this fertilizer issue, because they're all straight up moose nonsense, because we have farmers telling us, hey, this is going to get bad because we're paying more for fuel and fertilizer. And this is going to fucking make its way down to the person, the consumer, whether that's the individual person, customer, or a business restaurant trying to buy these items so that they can run their business and or feed their family. Now, for the most part, a lot of us don't care about the restaurants. So, restaurants, higher-end restaurants, like 5 stars and Michelin star restaurants, those places are going to do well for a while because rich people are just going to continue to buy until they hit step. Now, there are people who are middle of the road and upper middle class, if you will, that are complaining about the price of food. Now, the poor people, they're not complaining yet because we, taxpayers, we're paying for their shit. So they're getting subsidized by our taxpaying dollars that trickles down to them. And if food gets expensive for them, the government's just going to increase their budget or their allowance, if you will, I guess, right? So it's just going to increase their money for them, and they're going to be able to continue to buy what they're going to buy. But the middle class, we're people getting hit in the knees with a baseball bat at this point because so many videos out there. And you feel bad for a lot of these people because they're just like, what am I going to do? Like the one video of the girl who only had 2 hash browns for breakfast because that's all she could afford, and she gave one to a homeless guy. I was looking to donate to her. These people don't put donation links or anything like that. That's the other thing. They're just crying into a camera because they're trying to express their frustration, which I get. I get people doing that because what it's doing, and a lot of people don't realize, it's sharing the hardships that are coming. Because we're going to see a lot more of those videos. We're probably going to start seeing people put donation links up so that people can donate them so they can feed their family. And I don't have a problem doing that as long as that money's going towards food and not towards.
Baba Bashar, if there's a scripture, if a brother can post a scripture, Baba Bashar, where they've never seen a righteous man begging for bread. Because notice how he's saying that there's people, and Isaiah says that my servants shall eat, but they shall be hungry. All right? We understand and have no problem with looking forward to the rewards of our labors of love. That's another good scripture in Hebrews, if I'm not mistaken. Okay? So we're putting in this work and we're expecting a payment, and there's nothing wrong for that. The payment is going to be spiritual, meaning protection. So if people is doing this now,
and you need it. You're
going
going
to
need it very soon.
This and that, and the third, and crying on camera. We have faith that the Lord is going to feed us. I mean, Yahweh himself said it. Okay, that the sparrows and the birds, they neither toil nor work for their food, yet the Father in heaven feedeth them. Roughly paraphrasing. You see what I'm saying? But this is so like you said, more and more of this is going to come to, you're going to be seeing this regularly. People just complaining because of how bad it's getting. And that's how Esau wants it. Because naturally, humans, when they get to a certain point, they look to a higher power for help. This is why you have the term damsel in distress, right? Because when shit goes bad for a woman, they don't go to other women for help. They go to a man because they know a man can help them out. Same thing with the child. The child eventually, most likely, more than the father, would go to their mother, mommy, because they know mommy's an authority and mommy would help them. The woman would go to their man, and us men, we go to Yahweh Shai, you see? So, Esau wanting to be like the Most High. They want the population to come to them, which would be them saying that Esau is their God. Okay? And the water, Tazadaka, posting these scriptures. All right, I'm gonna get to them in a minute. We got about 5 minutes left. He says some great things here.
Pack of cigarettes and a Jim Beam bottle, right? So this guy is going to get that, and this is why, as preppers, we do what we do. This is why we put food away. Right now, we can put food away pretty easily. I mean, like, especially if you live like in a ghetto area like I do.
So notice how he said preppers can put food away pretty easily. That is what is said in 2nd Esdras, if a brother want to post that. That victual shall be so good cheap upon earth. Okay? So even though, gas is $5 plus and $4 plus and da-da-da-da, preppers is still able to buy shit. So this is cheap, relatively speaking. So this is the beginning of sorrows. As Yahweh Shah quoted from the Apocrypha, 2nd Esdras, as I just read earlier. Okay? But something sinister is coming soon, like you said. The lack of bread is going to come swiftly. All right? People act differently. I did a video on this way back on the mental psychosis that happens when the body hasn't had nutrients up to 72 hours. All hell breaks loose after 3 days. In America, it will take 1 day for real for a small population, but after 3 days, no food, no water. Oh man, people gonna bug the fuck out.
Fucking Dominican go. They have deals all the time. Buy 3 bags of sugar for $10 or 3 bags of sugar for $7. That's the type of stuff I'm starting to stock up on, and just canned goods and things like that. As far as meats, I'll be able to afford that until I can't. But meat is becoming very expensive, and people are having a hard time paying for that. Forget about milk. I heard some lady say she paid $7 for a gallon of milk. I don't buy a gallon of milk, but I know that what I've seen here was like $5 to $6 depending on the week. Right? It's going to be a problem, and here's the bigger problem that a lot of people are not addressing, but I'm seeing the pattern, and I hope we don't get there, but actually, sorry, one lady did address it, starvation. We might start seeing starvation in this country come the end of the year.
Well, I don't know about at the end of the year, whatever, Lord willing, I don't know about the job, but starvation is coming because cannibalism is prophesied in the scriptures. It's in the curses. All right, when the enemy shall come in like a flood, as it says in the curses, we shall be besieged, right, by our enemies. All right, people, the women is going to be eating the fruit of their womb, their children. Sad to say, but it is what it is. Okay, because the Lord has no respect of persons, and through Him come the issues of death. So, if He wants a little one to get sent to the spirit world through that manner, it's up to the Lord.
Might. I'm not saying we will. We might start seeing it. Only because, guys, again, so many people, and keep in mind, people who are doing the video that are crying about the lack of food or the cost of food, excuse me, and the money, and that gas prices are still going up. So now they're talking about, do they have to pay, they have to split the decision on how much food to buy versus how much to put in their car. That's another problem. So being that we're seeing all these problems, we could, by the end of the year, beginning of next year, start seeing starvation in certain places in the country. I don't think we're going to see it across the board yet, but we're definitely going to start seeing it, and you're going to see more videos of people talking about how their kids are hungry, they don't know what to do. We're going to start seeing shit like that. And I think that we start seeing shit like that, that if you can vouch for the person, how to donate to them.
See, this is why we Israelites, we not giving alms to niggas that are sinners. If a brother want to post that in the Ecclesiasticus, give not alms to a sinner, roughly paraphrasing. And I say that to say because, people be thinking that they're doing a good deed, Christians and shit like that. And they go off and spend it on some fetty wap. That's what we call it. Some people call it fentanyl, fetty wap. You feel me? So what the fuck good is it going to do? And this is why we give them the true bread to eat, which would be the scriptures. The true water to drink, which would be the scriptures. Okay? But this is why these people want to take the chip. Whenever you start hearing, oh, my kids is hungry, man, that's the easiest thing, because nobody want to hear a little baby, wah, 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 right? Tyler's crying and whining and all that. That's why because they can't handle it or discipline them little children. I know it's for, Edomites, but it's still on a carnal level. Children shall be the oppressors. These children be oppressing these Americans, man. You feel me? And then they give them whatever the fuck they want, all right? And then spoiling them, right? And then dealing with the consequences later. But because of that spoiling, all right, and these children with this whining, Benjamin, whiny, too much. Y'all look up that Shabaranks song. Type in YouTube music. Whiny, Shabaranks. But anyway, yeah, they're going to take the chip.
At the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to, giving in to that. And of course, this is a brother that put this video up, Tazaban Banyan, and Like a Bread coming swiftly. Shalom, first and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash. Double honor to the elders and apostles, a great millstone who are teaching this truth and sincerity. And shout out to Yakims out there in the four corners of the earth proclaiming this truth. Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Brakatum. So, as you know, there was a false flag event yesterday, and if you hadn't seen the video of that, well, what had happened is there was this other, he was either a general or a commander. He looked at the video, was like, wait a minute, this is an older video. This video's older. This is not anything new. This is probably at the very beginning of the war. I had already seen this video, but yet they're claiming that U.S. helicopter was shot down, and they use it as a pretext to attack Iran. U.S. carries out strikes in Iran over helicopter incident. The U.S. said it launched strikes in Iran in a response to what it describes as the downing of an American AH-64 Apache attack helicopter near the Strait. U.S. Central Command said U.S. President Trump ordered self-defense strikes. It's still calling it self-defense, which is bullshit, in response to yesterday's downing of a U.S. Army Apache helicopter. So I guess they're still going to push that there's going to be some sort of agreement by Friday, right? The mission is proportional response to unjustified Iranian action, CENTCOM said in a statement on X. So, like everything else, yeah. Despite its defeats on the battlefield, the U.S. opted to test our determination. Our powerful armed forces will leave no attack or threat unanswered. Leave our region if you want to be safe. You know, so like everything else, so, you know. Well, here it is. Iran threatens decisive response after U.S. begins self-defense strikes following the downing of Apache helicopters. So, like everything else, so, you know. Well, they're going to fire back. You can best believe that, right? Or did they already? U.S. begins self-defense strikes against Iran. Iran promises retaliation, because remember, it's always called Operation True Promise. We're in the 4 of that. After U.S. retaliatory strikes, Trump says U.S. must respond after Iran downed Apache over Strait. Trump says D.C. and Tehran are in the final throes of cementing a deal 2 or 3 days. So there we go. And they say that Iran shot down the U.S. Apache helicopter. This is a false flag. It probably didn't happen, or the explosion that happened was something else. But they're going to blame Iran for it anyways. Iran targets U.S. bases across the Middle East after strikes near Hormuz. Tehran said it struck U.S. military targets in Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan after D.C. launched attacks against Iranian military infrastructure near the strategic waterway. Iran launched wave of attacks against U.S. military bases on Wednesday, targeting facilities in Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan in retaliation for the strikes near the Strait. In a statement carried by Iranian state media, the military command warned that heavier and broader attacks would follow if D.C. continued military operations against Iran. IRGC said it had targeted the headquarters of the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain, as well as military facilities in Kuwait and Jordan. It also claimed the operation struck 21 U.S. targets across the region, including air and naval facilities. So, like everything else, though, well, there's more, because this one shows you the videos. So we'll try to play this. I don't know if there's... Yeah, hear it. There is sound. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. For there I will set to judge the nations round about. We're getting closer to it, but they have to mandate the MOTB, and through the famine, they could do so, which is why I played that first video. Look at how much closer we are, right? You know, through all this chaos, they're going to usher it in. And then the consequences of taking it is getting caught up in the wrath of the Most High, which He has indignation forever. The people whom He have indignation forever. That's Amalek and Esau on down. Because Amalek won't share with his brothers. So like everything else though, we're closer and closer to it. So pretty much though, video here, Ron says, which they have proof, you know, they always do before they make statements, that the U.S. committed a false flag. And the war continues as Israel calls for mass bombings. So as he gets into it, I have my little puppy in here with me, so if you hear her in the background, just to give you a heads up, you might hear her a little bit, but just trying to get her to recover as best as possible, as you already know about the broken leg, and just trying to make sure that she's well taken care of. Anyhow, this is what's going on with this false flag to restart the war that was already there. Anyways, see, there's no vamping it, you know, it's always going to be revamped, or as I was to say, fanning. There's no fanning it. It's still burning, see? So here we go.
It's in World Alternative Media here, and the Iran war continues under very strange circumstances, by the way. I know we're all very, very shocked about this. We talked about this recently on my Sunday show, which you can find on Patreon, but I wanted to go into it a bit with you guys on a more public scale because obviously it's all over the news right now after Israel bombed Beirut, and then we saw a response from that to attacks on Israel by Iran and allegedly on Kuwait by Iran, which of course Iran is saying did not happen. We are seeing some interesting statements by the Israeli government versus the U.S. government, and there's a back and forth here that is not consistent as oil prices surge once again, and we are seeing further shortages. This was never meant to end. How many times do I have to say it, my friends? I know most of you listen.
Yeah, that's what the scriptures are saying.
My goodness, I have to keep saying it. We're going to go into this and more, including Trump saying that he never said no new wars.
You insisted no new wars.
I can guarantee no war.
And I play a bunch of clips of him saying no new wars. We all know he said it, but let's just deal with this doublespeak, an Orwellian landscape when it comes to communication right now with the U.S. government. And I never said I was going to release the Epstein files. I never said I was going to cut spending. Gas prices? Who cares about the gas prices when Iran has nuclear weapons? It's just, we're all sick of it. But we're going to go into this and much more today what's actually happening there. Before we go into it, I urge people to check those links below.
All right, so here we go.
Goodness, it's never been more
Yeah, if you can afford that, if you got all that money going around, I can't even fix my dog's leg, right?
Signing up. It's a very easy $5 a month that helps keep us alive.
Yeah, exactly.
I am the candidate.
Let's get back to it.
Like button, share on social media, hit the notification bell, and hit subscribe if you have not yet already. We need
All right,
all the help
here
with
we
the
go.
algorithm we can get. Let's get into this. So, starting off, we played a longer version of this on my Sunday show, but let's hear what happened during this MSNBC interview.
You insisted no new wars.
I can guarantee no war.
I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. No more wars, no more disruptions. We will have prosperity and we will have peace. Under Trump, we will have no more wars, no more disruptions, and we will have prosperity and peace for all. I am the candidate of peace. I am peace. We will turn the page forever on those foolish, stupid days of never-ending wars. They never ended.
You insisted no new wars.
I can guarantee no war.
And he went on and said, well, I need to build the military and all that kind of stuff. It's just hypocrisy because, look, Obama was the king of bombing countries for a long time. He ran on no wars as well. And he was rightly called out, including by Trump, for a bombing president in history. Now, Trump is really going for the record. In fact, in his first administration, he banned the tallying of the bombs dropped. That's right, the tallying. So basically, you can't see how many bombs are actually dropped anymore, which makes it appear as though Trump isn't beating Obama's record, but he actually is in the sense where, first of all, no president in U.S. history has bombed 10 countries in 1 year. I know, it's surprising, right? There's a lot of bombing going on by the United States over the years, but never 10 countries in 1 year. And Trump has hit that. And again, what happened in no more wars? Oh, but there's 5G chess and all this kind of stuff.
He's
You don't
zero.
understand, you don't understand, you must be TDS. It's like TDS is a cult. Trump derangement syndrome is a cult. It's people that just don't like him but don't understand why, and they're just, they have this averse reaction to seeing his face. They get triggered by it. Same as that, a cult can also be considered when we are looking at the sycophants that love everything Trump does and keep changing the narrative and pushing the line further no matter what he does. Those people are also in a cult. It can be both ways at the same time. It doesn't have to be this side or that side, and it's of course insane because he's doing the thing of Israel. It's clear that Trump and
you see people in this cult, right?
Trump was swearing at
A cult of personality, right?
I went into it in a previous video.
Well,
look at the clips of him talking
on the
about it.
Edomite
It's clear,
side, of course.
it's clear as day that Trump, when he's saying that it's true, we got in an argument, is completely scripted. He's a bad actor. People always claim he's a good actor. He's a bad actor. It's clear when he's making shit up. And of course, they at the same time as we've reported, Israel, the IDF, and the U.S. military are merging right now through the National Defense Authorization Act. Now, it's very interesting because we had this so-called ceasefire on the table, which was never going to happen, as I've said. Black Bill Josh, and here he is again saying that it's not going to happen. Well, look, it hasn't happened because, and Trump still says in the next 3 to 4 days, but it's not true. What we're dealing with right now, we just had an Apache helicopter shot down over their airspace by the Iranian government. Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi, sounds Japanese, responds to U.S. Apache helicopter being shut down near Strait of Hormuz. And I quote, foreign forces in proximity to our territory are at constant risk. To reduce risk, best solution is for them to leave. Now, we keep hearing about how this is coming to an end. It was going to be 4 to 6 weeks, and now it's been months. And of course, we told you at the time it would be. And then they, same thing as in 2025 when they said that they had a ceasefire with Iran. Iran never agreed to a ceasefire. We reported on that at the time, and like we had everyone going, "Oh, you don't understand. You're TDS, and you don't want Trump to win, and you're black-pilled." I'm like, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just facing reality. Reality is a good thing to face because you cannot make positives if you don't understand and acknowledge the negatives. It's like, as I've said a billion times, you're in Africa, say 500 years ago, you're walking with your tribe, and there's a lion tracking you and surveying you. And you tell you see it, and you tell everyone else, "Hey, there's a lion following us," and they go, "Oh, come on, there you go, black-pilled again." Like, "Oh yeah, so negative," and then you get eaten. Or you could all come together as a group and understand the negative and do something about it, which is a very important thing to understand. So, of course, yeah, it's negative. The seven-country agenda was never going to go away. The Greater Israel Project wasn't planning to go away anytime soon. Of course, we've talked about this for decades now, but General Wesley Clark had said in the 90s, listed the countries that the U.S. will invade.
And Iran on the last.
And it was all in favor of Israel, and Iran was the last on that list.
Yep.
And here we are, and we've already seen the takeover of Syria now with al-Shura, formerly al-Jawlani, who was in HTS, formerly al-Nusra Front, which was pushed forward by Israel under the guise of stopping terrorism. What we're seeing with Iran, which we're about to go into a bit deeper here, what we're seeing with Iran is exactly what we saw with the Syrian chemical gas attacks, both in April of 2017 and April of 2018, respectively, where Assad was blamed for doing something that there's no way he would have done. For example, we have the first one, April of 2017. Rex Tillerson at the time, working in the Trump administration, said, "We are no longer going after Assad. We are going to make a deal with him and team up to go against ISIS," which the U.S. and Israel armed and funded in the first place anyway. But then 3 days after, we were supposed to believe that Assad gassed his own people for no reason, which later on came out to be false. There was no evidence of it. We told you that at the time on our channel. But again, that was 9 years ago, and we were called crazy then as well. Just like we were called crazy for saying that the CIA documents called Bringing Arms to Bear in Syria talk about how they will overthrow Assad and replace him with an Israeli agent, essentially, and eventually kill off the Shias and the Alawites, the Christians, all those, which is exactly what's happening right now. Anyway, fast forward to April of 2018, so 8 years ago, there was another thing where H.R. McMaster, then in the Trump administration, said we were no longer going after Assad. And then 3 days after, again, there's another attack on his own people. Look, he chemical gas children. Awful, horrible person. We need to take him out. He's a monster. And then we have CNN crews in there with no protective gear at all around this chemical gas, apparently, going and looking at people just like they did with Ebola, just like they did with all this kind of stuff. It's completely insane. Now we're seeing that in Iran. We saw it with Iraq before as well. We saw it with Libya before. We've seen it with Yemen. We've seen it with, my goodness, across the board. Hamas, which was armed and funded by Israel. We've seen it in Palestine. We're seeing it in Lebanon right now. We'll get into that later as well. But we see the Iranian government shoot down a U.S. Apache helicopter. This is leading to oil surging after Trump says U.S. must respond to Iran attack on Apache helicopter. Trump says U.S. must respond after down Apache over Strait. Trump says Washington and Tehran are in the final throes of cementing deal 2 or 3 days. Yeah, right, we've heard that forever. Iran shoots down U.S. Apache helicopter over Strait. Crew safe despite Trump calls for Israeli ceasefire. Casualties are rising in southern Lebanon, which, again, I'll talk about soon because it's insane. Look at the poly market on this. U.S.-Iran permanent peace deal by June 30th, 2026. It's at 20%. It keeps going down. Why was it even ever at 76%? Absolutely absurd. But this comes after, and by the way, it shows here Trump, it says U.S. in final throes of Iran deal, death toll. Source is Israel, pound South Lebanon. We'll talk about Lebanon in a moment. But I want to point out how this started. So Israel struck Lebanon, Beirut, massive bombing campaign. Hezbollah is armed and funded by Iran. Hezbollah is a security group that has been running in Lebanon since the Israelis stopped them from having any form of national security at all. So that led to that. It's a militia, essentially. And that led to Iran going after Israel. And allegedly, though, they said they struck Bahrain and Kuwait. Well, that's not quite what happened. In fact, we have Iran claiming that the drone attacks on Kuwait International Airport were a false flag operation by U.S. military, and probably Israel. U.S. and Kuwait said Iran launched those drone strikes. Iran seems to be pretty proud of their own attacks. I doubt they would attack something like that and then say it was a false flag if it wasn't a false flag. I have to say, I'm not trusting the Iranian government. Why don't you trust them? Then you don't trust the U.S. government? No, I don't trust the U.S. government. Almost everything they say militarily is a lie. When they say that the boats that were struck by Iran weren't hit, and then we get photos of them obviously on fire and with holes in them. Yeah, I mean, come on. When we have Israel in Palestine saying that they didn't kill the U.S. aid crews because They said they were terrorists or Hamas. They were shooting at them, and they didn't have any lights or any identification. And then we find mass graves, and they uncover the mass graves, pull out the phones of the people who were in the mass graves. They look at the videos on the cell phones, and it shows the exact moment that it happened, where they were in an ambulance with flashing lights and going down a road and had their hands up, and then the Israeli government started opening fire on them. We have examples of these people also being buried in concrete, people finding in collapsed buildings feet coming out as after Israelis had killed innocent people and then buried them in concrete. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't believe anything they say. I don't believe anything a government says that collects blackmail on all the politicians to manipulate them and subvert a nation in order to take it over. I don't believe that. And blackmails people by trafficking little kids, innocent children, including in some cases torturing and murdering them, in order for them to continue torturing and murdering more people overseas by dropping bombs on them. I don't trust anything they say. Now, does that mean I trust everything the Iranian government says? No, but I do know that they take some pride in what they accomplish militarily, so why would they lie about this being a false flag? Why would they purposely, these are precision strike vehicles here, these missiles. Why would they strike a place like the Kuwait airport, a very specific place, and not take the blame for that? It just, to me, it doesn't make any sense. It looks to me like everything they're saying right here with it being a false flag is true.
And that's where we're at right now. So, you got a false flag there, and we said it before, we'll say it again, that they're going to continue doing false flags. But will this be as long as that whole war against Syria? Doesn't look like it. It looks like this is near the end because, Apostle Tahar on down kept on reiterating, once you see them go after Iran, start looking towards the rest of it coming to the pass. And you see that it is, you see that they want to go after Turkey. We'll talk about that in a minute. Afterward, when they say that they're done with Iran, they're going to go after Turkey. And there's been clashes between Erdogan and the Israeli government. So, after heavy missile exchange, Trump mocks Iran's total mess of a military as Tehran reviews diplomacy with the U.S. So they're still talking about it, right? So here's what Trump said. Fake news media refuses to report how effective the U.S. naval blockade is. The most successful blockade in the history of naval warfare. Nothing gets through unless we want it to. I mean, wow, that's the big words. It's a steel wall. Iran is doing zero business, not paying their military or any of their bills, and quickly becoming a failed nation. Lots of oil is getting out. Praise be to Allah, President Trump. So, and here we go. Here's the other part of it. Iran's military is a complete and total mess. Much of it, like their Navy and Air Force, doesn't even exist anymore. Well, that's pretty bold. I see that barrage of missiles. They have been completely defeated. Iran is all talk and no action. The bully of the Middle East is dead. Well, the bully of the Middle East is the Israeli state. They've taken too long to negotiate a deal that would have been great for them. Now they will have to pay the price, President Trump. So that's almost sound like the whole terms of agreement is over. Well, we knew that it was never going to happen. U.S. and Israeli states seeking to sabotage Iran talks. Oh, you think? There was never going to be a deal anyways. The U.S. and Israeli state carry out latest strikes on Iran and Lebanon in a deliberate effort to sabotage the ongoing peace talks. On Wednesday local time, the U.S. struck Qasem Island and targets in southern Iran in response to the false flag Apache attack helicopter. President Trump blamed Iran. Tehran, however, refused to confirm that they were responsible for the crash, as the previous video said. And this again is older footage.
Because he is under pressure from the Zionist crowd in the United States, and let me emphasize, that's not Jewish. The Zionists include a lot of Christians like Mike Huckabee, but they are insistent upon destroying Iran. They don't want a deal with Iran. And in fact, that's why this attack that the Israelis launched on Sunday in Dahia, in the suburb of Beirut, that was launched specifically to try to provoke the conflict.
To draw everybody in.
Try to get the United States to commit to re-engage in the attack on
to draw them in.
And Trump resisted that. He held out. He's held out for 2+ days. But I think the pressure finally got to him. They have manufactured this incident.
So there you go. Least the flux shall draw them out. That's what the scriptures keep on telling us. And we'll get that in a minute. Iran says repeated U.S. ceasefire violations harming diplomatic process. So, in other words, they're saying that they still want to negotiate, but you're sabotaging it. Bugatti said the U.S. was damaging the diplomatic track through what he described as contradictory messages, frequent changes in positions and demands, and repeated violations of the ceasefire. Unfortunately, the U.S., through the contradictory messages, sends the repeated changes in its positions and demands, and worst of all, repeated violations of ceasefire is harming the diplomatic process, he said. He also accused Israel of undermining diplomacy through what he described as repeated ceasefire violations in Lebanon. And he's right about that, but there was never going to be a ceasefire. And then over here in Europe, right, the war with Ukraine that keeps going on. Ukraine hits over a dozen energy and industrial sites deep inside Russia overnight. Ukraine has hit Russia in another sweeping wave of overnight aerial attacks, especially targeting industrial facilities and energy infrastructure across multiple regions, and the extent of damage is yet to be disclosed. One of the targets was reportedly the Vienna IIR progress plant located in the Republic of Chavasia, which is alleged by Ukraine to the Western to manufacture components for Russian drones and bombs. Other nearby energy or nearby infrastructure was also targeted. And keep in mind, during this whole war against Iran, Ukraine was also supplying the U.S. with drones, and the Israeli state for that matter. 14 killed and 31 wounded in latest Israeli strikes across southern Lebanon. Ceasefire in Lebanon seems as tenuous as ever. Well, there was supposed to be a ceasefire that was in 2024. Okay? So, they've been violating that 2024 ceasefire. What makes anybody think this is going to hold? It isn't. With Israeli troops carrying out flurry of strikes across southern Lebanon, leaving at least 14 people dead and 31 others wounded, and bringing the overall death toll since the Israeli invasion began to 3,666 killed. The largest number of casualties were in the city of Tyre, where 9 were killed and 28 wounded. 2 were killed in a drone strike against Kafar Rahman, and another was killed in an airstrike against a farm in Adehat. And a 16-year-old was killed in another drone strike in the town of Hadash. IDF claimed another person, a Hezbollah gunman, was slain among the Rahman bridge along an exchange of gunfire. So, they do what they want, and nobody holds them accountable, right? Because the U.S. and Israeli state, well, they run the UN. So, they're never going to speak against themselves, right? Even though it's supposed to be a United Nations. But that proves one thing, though, that the bankers that are behind the entire thing are the ones that are really in charge. The Rothschilds, the Oppenheimers, the Rockefellers, aka the secret societies, But everybody knows that Amalek is the one behind it. Erdogan says Israeli attacks on Syria and Lebanon threaten Turkey too. Yeah, of course it does. Erdogan on Wednesday urged world powers to take a clear stance against the Israeli state, saying it was emboldened by the silence of the international community. Well, that's true. So like everything else, though, they're eventually going to go to war too. Everybody's going to get down in that valley. Everybody's going to come get down. Turkish President Erdogan said on Wednesday that Israeli attacks on Syria and Lebanon has reached a point where they also threaten Turkey. Yes, and I've listened to them threaten Turkey. Adding, Israeli aggression poses threat to the world, the whole world, and must be stopped. NATO member Turkey has been one of the fiercest critics of Israeli assaults against Iran and its genocide of Gaza and its invasion of Lebanon, saying Israeli state was the biggest obstacle to regional peace. It has halted all trade with the Israeli state and called for measures against all international courts. Attacks by Israeli Prime Minister King Bibi and his network of murder in Lebanon and Syria have brought the issue to a point where it also threatens Turkey. So, there it is. You can see where Gomer and all his troops are going to get involved. But also Russia is talking about reconstruction here. See how Russia's going to come get down too? But they're also going to send in troops to protect their allies, as well as heavy armaments, right? Russia says possible reconstructing military facilities in Syria under discussion. So they're speaking with al-Jilani as well. Russia said on Wednesday that the possible reconstruction of its military facilities in Syria is being discussed, Anila reports. In remarks to journalists at a media briefing in Moscow, Foreign Ministry spokesman said Russia's military presence in Syria is a topic of discussion in contacts with Damascus, including in context of possible restructuring of the functionality of Russian military facilities. However, this again falls under the purview of our security apparatus, Ministry of Defense says. She added that bilateral coordination is developing very actively, and the government agencies and business circles from the two countries are involved in efforts aimed at expanding ties. Russia maintains two key military facilities in Syria: a naval logistics base in Tartus and the Khamenei Air Base in northwestern province of Latakia. Now, a lot of these places were destroyed when the Israeli state started blowing up a bunch of shit after Assad fell. We knew that they were going to make their moves on Iran, and surely they have. So like everything else, though, well, we can see where we're at here, right? You know, that all these nations are being called down there, right? So we're going to bring it out. I mean, go through these lots of times, right? It's repetitive. Of course it's repetitive. You know, constantly watching the news and measuring the time diligently, right? But you know where this valley is, right? You know, do I have to say it? You know, well, it's worth saying. Joel chapter 3, verse 2, I will gather all the nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. There I'll put them on trial for what they did to my inheritance, my people, Israel, because they scattered my people among the nations and divided up my land. And that's exactly who he's getting at, is Amalek in particularly, but also, you know, pretty much, though, getting into the slave trade and how they did all this. And he's going to punish Amalek, and they're right there, because everybody is gathered into that valley, you know. They cast lots for my people, traded boys for prostitutes. They sold girls for wine to drink. That's exactly what the Amalekites did when they sold them over here to Esau, Edom, to, you know, America, Babylon the Great. You sold the people of Judah and Jerusalem to the Greeks that you might send them far from their homeland. See, I am going to rouse them out of the places to which you sold them, and I will return your heads, your own heads, what you have done. So it's all coming back. Verse 9, proclaim this among the nations, prepare war, rouse the warriors, let all the fighting men draw near and attack. And so that's what's happening. Let the weakling say I am strong, and that's what's happening with Iran's response. You know, because they're beating their plowshares into swords and pruning hooks into spears. They're getting ready to fight. Everything's in their military budget, and they've been preparing for years. Ever since, you know, they've seen that they went after Saddam Hussein, you know. They knew that they would be eventually on that list. See, they know about those 7 nations and that Iran being on the list. They knew that. So they've been prepared for a long time. Come quickly, all you nations from every side, and assemble there. Bring your warriors. Let the nations be roused. Let them advance in the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there I will set to judge all the nations on every side. And that's happening. So we're getting closer and closer to the very end of this. And I got one more here about the infrastructure that's leading to the MOTB being mandatory. They haven't mandated it yet, you know, but you see it's gone commercial as of yesterday. You know, you know, big news happening that yes, indeed, it has gone commercial. And one side will be totalitarian, while the other one's going to pretend to have miracles, the blind to see, the lame to walk, etc. But now they're also talking about a new digital ID lockdown on every phone in lockstep. You know, and you know, lockstep. Well, this video is going to get into it. So hopefully this has been edifying. As I close this out, for that I want to say Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadosh Wa Abal Babal. Brakatam, Jehofolek, Shalom.
Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Rakakadosh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And I've got quite some interesting major headlines on here for today. The first one that I want to start off here is, I say, one of the most interesting ones
dealing with this. I want to say forced introduction, but a potentially forced introduction of this digital ID. And as we read through this article here, you'll see mention of pretty much things like having your iPhone sort of restricted to this almost child mode, like parental guardian mode if you don't identify yourself using some form of identification, not just a picture of an ID or just checking off your age, but now even to the point of recording a video of yourself, these kinds of things. And this is basically where they're going with it, right? And this is like this is the same framework for Revelation 13 and 17, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark. This is just the steps that are leading into it, right? The steps easing into it. But anyway, it says the UK government plots digital ID lockdown on every phone in lockstep with big tech. The Labour government in Britain is accelerating its assault on digital privacy under the well-worn banner of child protection. So, using the cover of child protection, they are basically hiding under that umbrella to introduce some very invasive surveillance systems in here. It says fresh plans leaked to the press reveal ministers intend to compel Apple, Google, and other tech firms to restrict smartphones so thoroughly that a digital ID will be needed to use them with unfettered access. And when you're fettered, or something fettered is restricted. It's like unrestricted access. Basically, in order to do that, you need to have and prove and show your digital ID. And this is going to extend as well to the internet. A lot of people access the internet via smart phones or devices, TVs, smart TVs, tablets, computers. That's how a majority of people access the internet, right? So even smartwatches. So in order to even use those platforms or those machines or devices, you need to to verify yourself, and you don't want to do that. Then how are you going to get access to anything more? The mechanism comes in the form of expanded age verification that effectively demands digital identification for device setup and use. So while you're setting up the device, they would have those steps in there to digitally identify yourself. And they might allow you to say, okay, well, if you don't digitally identify yourself during the setup process, your phone could be set up, but it'll be set up in a very base form, a restricted form that you can barely use anything. Maybe you try to access the internet, it says no, you need to verify your ID, or you try to download certain apps, you need to verify your ID. So it's kind of useless, right? Like you bought the phone, but you can barely use it because you can't verify, or you decided not to verify digitally your identification or your identity, I should say, while setting up the phone or the device. You see, the use of device, because device is broader than phone. The device can include a tablet, it can include a computer, it can include a smart TV, whatever. What is sold as safeguarding the young is shaping up as a backdoor mandate for every adult in Britain to submit ID just to operate a phone or go online. You hear that? This development lands alongside Google's confirmation that it will soon bring digital IDs to Android devices in the UK via Google Wallet. And what you're seeing here with this digital ID is a compilation of different facets, different avenues into one. Health records, identification, Google Wallet. What is that? What do people associate that with? Your finances. Okay, so monetary, right? Finances, identification, health, credentials, all in one place. Users will record a short video selfie and scan a government-issued ID to add a digital version of their passport or other documents, and then they're going to make those prerequisites in order to do other things. The feature, so you may say, oh, well, well, if I'm not interested in adding my passport or other forms of identification on there, well, based on what they're going to restrict you to, if you don't, you're going to be interested in doing that. The feature already rolling out in select EU countries this summer, so this ain't even just, things that they're just talking about or planning. This summer, they're already rolling these things out. Is explicitly tied to the UK's Online Safety Act requirements for age checks on content involving self-harm, eating disorders, bullying, and pornography. Google is exploring certification under the government's Digital Identity Trust Framework, which could extend its use to everyday purchases, such as alcohol. Not limited to, but such as alcohol. You go to buy a certain thing, they got to show you digital ID to verify, or else you can't. Now check this. Apple has already implemented similar restrictions on iOS devices in Britain, forcing age confirmation or locking users into limited child mode. Think of it like an aggressive parental control kind of mode that your phone is in, where unless you confirm your age, you're going to be stuck in this mode. And you see that little thumbnail right there, confirm you are 18 plus? Or else, look at that. Apple forces iPhone users to prove age with ID or lose unrestricted internet access. You know, like when you are either in school or at a workplace and you try to use a computer, certain sites are blocked. You try to access certain sites, it's blocked. You try to go here, it's blocked. You try to go to YouTube, it's blocked. You try to go, it's all blocked. Only certain ones are allowed for you to be able to visit those. You bought the phone with your own money, but now if you don't follow this, then you can't even use it the way you want. Interesting. It says here, Big Brother Watch director Silky Carlo has been blunt over where this leads. Protecting children online is vital, but these are outrageous plans that will fail to address the underlying cause or causes of online harm. This will only result in population-wide ID checks for all of us to use our phones, tablets, or laptops. And that is where it's going to go. But the crazy thing is, it won't stop there. It will go there, but it won't stop there. She continued, simply put, the Labor government is introducing ID checks for the internet. No one in a democracy should need to show their passport just to get online. Well, guess what? Now you got to prove who you are if you're going to be online, and that's everything they want. You know, at first it was, try to hide your IP address, use a VPN. Now they're gonna know exactly who you are, what you're posting, what you're watching, when you're watching it. Did you like it? Did you share it? You know, all of that. It says here, Carlo warned that the proposals replace genuine parental responsibility and meaningful tech design with performative authoritarian government control that children can easily circumvent by accessing adult registered devices. Yeah, once, say an adult already signs, they set up their device and confirm their age, a child can just, use their phone and then to still do what they want to do. So, and these tech companies and governments, they know that already. But they don't care about that. They just want a good enough cover story that they can sort of use to then push this draconian authoritarian digital ID system. For the UK's 50 million adult internet users, the outcome is stark. This backdoor digital ID requirement would invoke the death of anonymity and internet privacy. Once again, you're bare and exposed on the internet. Okay, no more Ratchet and Clank 2000 user profiles on here. That's not happening. Dora 1978, and then you go in there and then no, you're gonna know exactly who you are. Tom Wilson, who works at freaking Home Depot, was out here posting posting things unbecoming of an American citizen. So now they got to go visit him. The mechanics are chilling. Without submitting an intrusive ID or submitting two intrusive ID checks during device setup, users face a chokehold on your software and internet access, leaving you with a child-locked device. Restrictions on messaging, streaming, and browsing open the door to client-side scanning, government spyware sitting in every pocket. Yeah, because in order for them to enforce these restrictions, they're going to need to put this client-side, meaning from the user's device, whether it's on their web, their computer, their laptop, their mobile. That's the client side. The server side is what their device contacts or reaches out to in order to get whether it's a website or whatever, use the application or the software. So they're putting this device on this software on or spyware on your actual device in order to be able to force you to if they want to force you to be able to keep your phone locked unless you verify your ID, that has to be client side. Let's see what else we got on here. The bigger picture involving the government mandating that all phones/devices in Britain require ID and surveillance software is a crossing of the Rubicon. If you're not sure what that means, go and look it up. It's kind of like crossing, the point of no return. That would make the UK one of the most authoritarian internet regimes in the world. Okay? This is what they're pushing for with these big tech companies. Let's see what else we got on here. Look at that. The government's one login platform and planned gov.uk wallet create a centralized system for identity verification across public services. With what? Biometric data, audit trails logging every use, and a permissions framework that can deny access to everything from jobs to age-restricted purchases. So, if you still don't see it, well, I don't know if you ever will.
Yep, exactly. And we know what it all leads to. Let him that hath understanding know the times that we're in. Calculate the number of the beast, because that's what that means. For it is the number of the man, and that number is 603 and it's no coincidence that the numeric value, the geometric value of Nero Caesar is 603 Just putting that out there so you see where everything's going, and you can catch his video. Prophecy 144 channel, you know, has a bunch of them, just like I show a bunch of videos too. So that's a good place to check out lots of people. This is from Men of Valor, you know, and I believe he identified himself at the beginning, but nonetheless, though, you know, this is what's going on. Shalom, Barak Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadosh, Wa Abal Babal, Brakatum, Jehovah Olek, Shalom.